me to connect with Kate and Michelle of saying, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we can get to share some of the things that we know around on applied neuroscience? And what if you could add to your portfolio, really understanding from a science perspective how the brain works? Because we feel that when we use that, it helps us as coaches to manage how we are experiencing the coaching process, but also gives us that scientific foundation of trying to understand what really is my client going through, and also give them some really cool tools, techniques, frameworks that can help them be pretty transformative. And I use the word very deliberately because with clients, we do see a pretty transformational kind of a change whereby it's like, whoa, really? That's how the brain works? Ah, I get it. I know what to do about it. So that I think so is quite a great experience. So welcome to the brain. It's as heavy as our Mac Airbook, actually. So you're talking about 1.2 to 1.5 kilos. So you know immediately versus my body weight, it's a very tiny percentage, but it's using up 20% of my energy. And why? Not surprisingly, because it's got 100 trillion cells and billions of connections. The images you're seeing there are actually neurons, and that's how they connect. So I heard a lovely podcast by Stephen Fry called Inside Your Brain. Highly recommended. Very entertaining, but based in science. And he actually makes the statement that if you put all the neurons that we have in our body one after the other, you could probably circle the earth 15 times. So just trying to think of the enormity of connections that are out there. So it requires that energy. And the way that it works is it's systems and subsystems, and they're integrated and they're kind of coordinated, working with each other. Brain is not between our ears only. The neurons are shot through a body. That's what neuroscience has got to our knowledge. But sadly, all of us are trained only to really use the brain between our ears. So immediately as a coach, you start realizing, oh, they are not accessing all the intelligence. So can we help them get the full intelligence and use all the power, because that's not the only brain. But the interesting thing is that the brain between the ears does have lead control. And so therefore, to really help them understand the mechanism of how that works is also quite powerful, because the rules and the mechanisms of how the brain works controls emotions, decisions, behaviors, well-being, all the kind of topics that we as coaches kind of use. So it gives you a science-based approach in offering them tools around it, which is quite powerful. And also why it's important is because there's a difference between conscious behavior and these rules. And let me just say that in another way through an example. I might choose to sleep for less number of hours. That's under my control. I might say I'm going to sleep just for 5 hours, 4 hours, not sleep that much. But the body and the mind and the brain has strict rules, because when it has sleep deprivation, it goes into not being that productive. We know that. So it's important for them to understand the rules and mechanism of how the brain is working is non-negotiable. So therefore, they need to change and flex, because that's going to be impacted even if they are kind of managing themselves differently. So that's another reason why we want to talk about it. And, it's an evolving subject. We will say that upfront and caveated. Maybe there's some things that will change tomorrow. But I think we know enough about the brain to have a solid foundation. And because it started linking up to ancient practices, we think it's something that's really useful to bring in a cohesive way, so that we are offering as coaches a clear narrative, which is science-based, which can empower clients. So I think from my perspective, that's why I would say why neuroscience and coaching. Maria, you want to add on to from your perspective? And I know we've got a slide for you as well.
I think one of the things that I found most powerful and I was drawn to was that once we kind of know what the issue is, if we then know what mechanism we can leverage, suddenly everything calms, and that's the nervous system. So for me, it was very much about knowledge is power. And then I take it further and say, actually, it's applied knowledge that's power. Because like Reena said, there is so much information out there. Some of it's a bit bogus. A lot of it isn't, but there's so much. So to me, it was very much about taking people through a very understandable, layered and nested journey. So this bit does that, this bit does that, that equals this. And like Reena said, it's all about feelings, actions, behaviors. We're basically a chemical cocktail, but we get the chance to impact how we want to be in that. So I think that's one of the main reasons I came to neuroscience, because I'd come out of education. I'm like, well, what's the next big thing that's going to empower people? And the opportunity with neuroscience is the minute you realize that these systems work regardless, it allows you, when you're working with your clients, to work out what's universal. Is this your limbic system? Because everyone's limbic system does X, Y, and Z. It just, but also then to be able to take a deeper dive into what's specific. Because the thing is,
There's a plethora of information out there. And some of the stuff we read, we go a little bit like, oh, really? You want to say that? That's a bit
yeah,
misleading.
yeah,
And the second is, when there's so much, what do you focus your attention on? And because I guess we've been using it now, definitely I've integrated it into my coaching practice quite immensely for the last decade. So we kind of know which bits work. So are we neuroscientists? No, but we do know enough and solid information of neuroscience that we're applying and bringing it into the coaching practice. So really, that's also one of the reasons why we did it. In fact, that is the reason why I brought neuroscience into my coaching practice. Uh, Actually, when I moved from India to UK, probably that was when I first understood that there was merit to do it, because I thought, well, there are some things that my first reaction was, I wish people in the Western world knew something which Indians know, because a lot of neuroscience is grounded in Ayurveda, which is the ancient science from India. And vice versa, I also thought, I wish Indians knew a lot of things that Western people did. So I knew it was an and therefore it was bringing the two together, and that became part of my journey. And I started studying intentionally. I coach myself in energy leadership. You're going to see a glimpse of it today, which is based on science. I did an MIT Sloan certification because I wanted to really progress, because it's a subject that's evolving. So probably that's my story of how I got into it, which kind of takes me into a little bit about why neuroscience and
to see you
coaching.
all. I'm Maria, as you can see from a little banner. I have been working to enhance people's peak performance for probably 25, maybe 30 years. She says, not wanting it to be maybe that long. Um, I came out of education, so I am very interested in how the brain learns, which is what kind of took me to neuroscience, as well as being trained in a couple of different flavors of counseling. And I found neuroscience to be so powerful and so empowering. Um, I've run my own business for the last 10 years. One of the highlights was being asked to contribute to a peer reviewed global business magazine. So that was feeling very lovely. And I'm just passionate about people getting the very best out of themselves. I think people have limitless potential. And I just like sharing what I happen to know, but also learning. Like Reena said, we peer coach, we do the things because empowering people to me is just one of the things that I enjoy doing with my time. And it's lovely because we get paid for it too. So that's a little bit about me. We're going to do a little poll.